Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Work has progressed on the Farmall H to the point that we can start thinking about the electrical system. Now, I don't have any of the circuits ran. We don't even have switches in place yet, but there's a lot of other things that need to be done before we get to that point anyhow. Today we're looking at the headlights, and I've had a couple of viewers ask if I could do an episode showing how I prefer to convert these original style teardrop IH headlights from a contact ground setup to a dedicated ground circuit setup. I prefer the dedicated ground lights worlds of magnitude over the contact ground ones, because contact ground just has too many potential pitfalls that are going to make the lights stop working. Dedicated ground circuit just helps you to avoid all of that. It'll make a lot more sense once we get a light taken apart and I can show you exactly how the contact ground system works. Let's go over to the bench. What we have here is a pair of new reproduction teardrop style IH tractor headlights, reproduced down to the final detail to most accurately reflect what these originally were back in 1945. The reason why they call these contact ground lights is because there's only one electrical connection on them. The power wire would attach to this lug back here, and the electricity would go through the light bulb and then rely on the housing and the base attachment of the light to have enough metal on metal contact to eventually provide a path to ground for that electricity, and that would allow the light bulb to illuminate. You can see the difference though. This light has an extra contact on the back. I've added this second lug. That's a dedicated ground circuit lug. It's a fairly straightforward modification to do. I'll show you exactly what's involved. We start by removing the lens from the front of the light. So this screw comes out of the band, and then the band can be carefully spread and taken off from around the lens. They bend rather easily, so you just have to exercise caution. There's the band. And then the lens will come off with the rubber seal attached. And behind it we've got the light bulb and the reflector. On the back of the reflector is the single power lead, this wire right here. The power lead wire is secured under this screw that's on the back side of that terminal lug. And it's a forked spade on the end, so you don't have to take the screw all the way out, just loosen it and it pulls right off. And the light bulb, you can see these track marks that are pressed into each side of the socket base. There's a couple of pegs on the bottom of the light bulb that follow those tracks, so it's just a push and twist deal to remove the bulb. There's the peg, the other one on the other side. And the lead wire then just comes right out of the reflector and the socket base. And the way this works is the power comes up the lead wire and it hits this that little brass end. The brass end is making contact with the round bulb that's on the base of the light bulb socket. So the power goes into the filament, and then it has to ground through the base of the light bulb socket itself into the reflector socket. And then it goes from the reflector socket to the reflector itself. The reflector then makes contact with this copper lug that's on the inside of the light housing. So the light housing then takes the electricity to the base bolt. The base bolt then takes the electricity to the clamp that's on it. The clamp attaches to the crossbar here and takes the electricity to that. The crossbar then has to feed the electricity to the steering pedestal, and from the steering pedestal it finally makes its way to chassis ground. Now the problem with how I paint these tractors is that I've got paint layers between all of these places, so contact ground is not going to work right here anyhow. Even if I did not have paint between all of those surfaces, all it would have to do is get corroded or even dirty right here, right here, right there, right here, here to the clamp, clamp to the bolt on the bottom of the light housing, bolt to the light housing, or light housing gets corroded between itself and that copper lug. The lighting system fails to work. So we're going to bypass all of that. So to carry on with the modification, first thing we have to do is relocate the snap clip for the power lug. That's just a friction clip. It will slide straight out like that. And the power lug is just held in by that, and it's got a little flat at the bottom of the hole that just keeps it from rotating in there. So instead of having the base of the clip down here, we just want to throw it in from up top. Snaps right back in place. Power lug is retained once again. And now we drill a small hole in this area right here. Just like that. Now we work on the reflector. I'm going to slide it onto this punch I've got located in the vise because we're going to solder a wire directly to the light bulb socket. That's the first leg of the ground system, so we're taking it directly to the source. I'm using rough sandpaper to get down to bare clean metal because there's some shiny coating that they've applied to that. That's probably not going to solder very well, but now we have to tin the surface, prepare it for the soldering. So I'll get some paste flux on there. That's going to help to clean it. And this is where I like the good old-fashioned heavy-duty soldering irons. You know, the ones with the old fabric-wrapped cord that kind of scare you a little bit. This is where it's at. You want to put plenty of heat into that socket. Hear the flux sizzling. We'll introduce some solder. Melt a little bit onto there. Spread it all around a little bit. Get it nice and silvery. While it's still hot, wipe off excess. And now with the wire clamped in position, we can solder it in place to the socket housing. Good hot soldering iron works wonders for this. Here we are. Just allow that to cool a little bit more. Should be cool enough to handle now. Give it a test. Nice and solid. It's going to work just fine. Now we can cut the excess wire off. We only need a piece just about this long. We'll strip it back and put a ring terminal on. So these are a non-insulated, they are a crimp style terminal, but I solder them as well. The crimp just keeps them in place better for the soldering process. There we are. As soon as you can see the solder flow down into the crimp portion, you know it's a permanent connection. And to make it look a little bit more professional, I seal it off with shrink tube. And this is the shrink tube that has the glue inside that will melt and form a pretty tight seal. Not that it matters so much inside this light. It's just the standard shrink tube that I keep on hand. There. That looks pretty good. Now we can assemble the power lead back into the reflector. That just finds its way into the light bulb socket. Light bulb goes in, once again, push and twist. Makes good contact there. So now we have our power wire and our ground wire. Ground wire gets this small machine screw goes through the ring terminal that we put on, and we will start the screw through the hole that we drilled in the light housing. There. You can see it sticking out the back. Next, we've got this small steel washer. We need to make a corresponding rubber seal that is the same size. Got our block, thin sheet of rubber, and we have the center hole punch and the outside diameter punch. We'll have one of those made in short order here. Simple as that. Our new rubber seal goes on first, which makes this ground lug better sealed than the factory original power lug. And then the steel flat washer on top of that. Then we thread a nut down. This will not only keep pressure applied to the rubber seal, but it will also locate the screw in the housing to make it more like a stud. That should do it. Now we hook the main power lead back up to the lug. Reflector goes back in place. The lens with the rubber seal next, and be sure to get that seal lip pushed over the reflector. There we are. And then the band goes back on. Cinch it tight with the screw, and the modification is complete. So when we build our wire harness, we'll have a ring terminal on the power wire that attaches right there, and we have a ground lug sticking out for the ring terminal on the dedicated ground wire. That will be held down by another nut that will go on over the top, and it's a much more streamlined and reliable system. We've taken all of those connections out of the chain completely. We have a direct source right to the back of the light bulb socket. Should be a perfect ground. Let's just do a function check though, prove out our work. Power jumper, ground jumper. So turn this around where we can see it. Power, ground, light works. Very good. 6 volts, nice and bright. And that is how I turn a contact ground style light into a dedicated ground circuit light. It's a pretty easy modification to perform as long as you can get past drilling a hole in the side of a brand new light housing. Once you do that, you can throw that ground lug wherever. It doesn't have to be down here. It can be off to the side or on the back or even up top if you wanted. I don't know why you'd go up there, but pretty much the sky's the limit. Just a few basic tools and some general knowledge and how current flows. You can do whatever you want. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you back again.